Okay, everyone, we're going to start the last step of the project, which is step 4, creating the assembly of the isometric blocks. So last time we made the bracket and turned it into a block. I went ahead and made all my other isometrics. I turned them all into blocks, except for this one. So when you create a block, you just type B, enter to get to the block. We're here. We give it a name, so I'm going to name it, this is the pivot ISO. We always want to pick a point, so I'm going to pick point, and then I'm going to pick the very center here. That's going to make life easier, because when I click it, again, that square, that editing grip, is right at the center of that circle. I did that with all of these. I picked the center of that circle. I picked the center of this ellipse, the center of that ellipse, the center of the shaft. All right, same thing here. I picked the center of the top here. That's going to make everything much easier. So what we want to create now, again, is the isometric assembly view. So we have this right here. This is our orthographic assembly, and we're going to actually make two different isometrics. We're going to do what's called the exploded view, and then the view where it's put together. Notice that we're going to have to make two of the bushing because we can't just mirror it. We have to actually create this. So that's something else we're going to have to do. But that'll be later on. So now I have all my isometrics. So the very first thing I'm going to do is switch to my center line. And I'm going to draw a center line coming straight down. And then I'm going to draw a T like this, because I want to, again, have this T here, right? And then we're just going to trim stuff as we need it. So we have our T. The first thing I'm going to put in is actually the pivot, and I'm just going to copy it instead of move it. Again, you guys can move it, but I like to keep my stuff organized. So I'm just going to move it. So I'll pick that center point, put it right at the center of that T. But I need that pivot to be centered on this line. Right now it's on the front face. So what do I need to do? I'm going to hit the move command, move, and this is another reason why we actually made these parts the exact dimensions are to scale. We made these parts to scale. That way we can actually move them around. So that part was 3 inches, so I'm going to move it over 1.5. So now this part is perfectly centered on this line. So I can hit my trim command, right click to select all, trim, 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 trim everything I don't need. I actually need that line, so I'm going to Control Z, because I want that center line going all the way back. So I'm going to hit escape. I actually don't want to go all the way back. I want it to stop at the center point here, just to kind of make it look right. And then that's the first step. So next, I'm just going to place this guy. I'm going to copy it, pick the center. Again, you guys, you can just move it by grabbing that grip point, grabbing that editing point, and putting it wherever you want. But again, I want to keep mine organized because that's the way I like to draft. Find that center point here. And then I'm just going to move it up. Doesn't really matter how far up. Making sure I'm using my lines, make sure it stays centered. I'm not going to trim anything right now because I might have to move it up or down depending on what I need to put. And I'm simply just following this. All right, so my brackets down here. Next thing I need is my spacer. So I'm going to come over here, copy, move it. Next thing they have is the shaft. This one I can use because my 30-degree axis crosses that red line. I can actually use it and it's still centered. Again, that editing grip helps me see that it's actually crossing that red line. What else? The U support. So this one is going to be a little tricky. So how are we going to do this? All right. So for this U support to line up correctly, I actually, instead of picking, when I hit my move command, select my object, hit enter, when I do my base point, instead of picking this center point, which is the front face, I want to pick this center point, which is the back face, or the inside edge here for that curve. So I want that center point, and I want that center point to line up with this endpoint because we made that endpoint the same as that center point. So that's how it would be put together in real life. And now I'm just going to move it down. About right there. Move. That one's actually good. Let's move this one up. Move this up. I'll copy this. Midpoint, and then move it along the dotted line till about right there. So I have everything except for the other side of this bushing that I haven't made yet, which I'm not going to make in this video. We're not doing part 7, 11, 10, 1, or 2. Again, that's all stuff we would just buy in the store. We don't need to draw it for this project. So I'm going to shrink this line, line a little bit. Again, you guys need to actually draw the other side of this bushing, the back side of it, this part right here. You actually draw that part. I'm not, just for saving time on this video. Now I can trim all the stuff I need to trim. Again, bring this line back to the center point. That way it makes that line look like it's coming to the center and not somewhere else. Do we want to trim that line or not? Let's trim it. So we're going to trim. That's what I thought was going to happen. So it trimmed everything. So I'm going to Control Z to undo. Trim. That's what I want. Just like that. Trim here. It's just going to make you do every one of those. So I'm just going to click right there, escape, and delete that one. And then this one, I'm going to trim here and here. Again, bring this up to the center point. Bring this one up to the center. Bring this one up to the center. All right, and then that'll be our exploded view. We're next going to just copy this, move it over, Now we're going to actually put this thing together. So I'm going to hit my move command. I'm going to pick the bottom center point, which is the center of this edge here. And it should line up with this center point of the smaller circle. So we're creating this right here, the isometric assembly, this right here. But notice we actually have to trim stuff. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to explode right here, this tool, explode. And I can delete this circle because we wouldn't see it because our spacer's in the way. I'm going to explode my spacer, hit my trim command, right click to select all. My bracket is in front of my spacer right here, so I'm going to trim this. I have to delete this. My spacer is in front of my bracket in this back section. So I'm going to trim all this. This little piece here, I'm deleting. Fillet line, enter. And then I can bring this line back up to the center here just to make sure everything stays in line. So that's the first stage. All right, now we can do the shaft, which is the center here. Should line up with the center right there. It's just gonna have a little bit hanging out. We're gonna trim. So we need to trim. Oh, I forgot to explode it. Yeah, I never exploded it. You gotta explode it before you trim it. Trim that, trim that. There, and then all of this gets deleted because it's inside of our part. And all that would get deleted. Well, not all of that. All that got deleted because it's inside of our part. This is an open area, so I still see a little bit of my shaft until I put my U bracket in. Once I put my U bracket, that's going to go away. I'm going to move. So let's see. What would be the best way to move this? So we got to get that U bracket onto this part perfectly. It's got to be in the perfect spot. So what I'm going to do is, because I know I made this part to scale, I didn't make it wrong, I'm going to draw a construction line coming off this back middle point, or this bottom middle point, half of the distance, which was, I think, 1.4. Let me go back just to make sure. So I'm trying to figure out how far back it goes, which it's 1.4. I was right. So that's the exact center of the bottom. So now I can move from this point and come down to the endpoint there. And that's perfectly centered. So now all this gets deleted because it's underneath my U bracket. I wouldn't see it, won't see that. I trim this little piece because that's an open area right here. I trim this. Again, this is open right here. I can delete that because nothing's going to go in there. Delete that. So all this is behind the U bracket. So I can delete this. I can not delete that. I'm just going to bring this forwards. Trim this. Trim that line. Delete whatever this is. Back to this part. I'm going to move this inside of here. But again, picking the correct center point is going to be important. So I'll come here. This center point or end point is for this the very first surface. If I hover over this blue right here, the second center point comes up. That's the one we want because that's the center of this back arc, this back ellipse, and that's what's going to hit this surface over here. So it hits right there. Explode this. This all gets deleted because it's inside of our part. To explode my pivot, and that circle gets deleted because it's behind our bushing. This little piece is behind our bushing, so we need to trim it. And that should be it. You don't have to do anything with the back side because we wouldn't see the back side at the angle we're at. So I'm just going to move this part. I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard to deselect those center lines. Enter. Pick my center. Come all the way down. So again, I'm on the very front face. The very front face is not here. It is back here. So trim. My pivot's on top. I know it's on top by looking here. All right, my pivot's on top, so I need to trim. I need to explode my U support first. Now I can trim. Trim that. Trim all this. This stuff gets deleted because it's, again, underneath my pivot. My pivot is missing these holes. I just realized that. Don't forget to put the holes in your pivot. All right, and then we wouldn't see the bushing at all. We don't see any of this because it's behind the U support. And then that is it. We don't need any center lines for the actual assembly, not the exploded view. So I can delete all that just so it doesn't come out. I want you to leave the center lines in the exploded view. And then once you're done, you're going to put it on a sheet of paper, making it look just like, well, I thought I had an example. Just like this. So that is how this project should look like once you're done. Make sure you're looking at the final example on part 2 because you're going to submit the entire packet with the orthographic drawings of each individual part, the orthographic assembly, and the isometric. So it looks like you're going to have, you guys will have 7 pages, it looks like. But if you have any questions, make sure to send me an email. Again, I'm sitting at my computer most of the day, so I'm here to help anytime you need me. So again, be sure to email me if you have questions.